I should also talk a bit about how I like to use the softening or fill light. I like to place it on the key side of the face. This is in contrast to most common practice. So let's talk a bit about three-point lighting. Three-point lighting consists of key light, fill light and backlight, or as I like to call it, modelling light, softening light and separating light. Modelling because it's the light that's responsible for representing the three-dimensional shape of the face, hence modelling. Softening because it's responsible for softening the shadows or wrapping the light further around the face, and separating because it's responsible for separating planes. When analysing light on a face, it's useful to ask yourself 4 questions. How am I able to see the main shape of the face? The answer is the modelling light. Why can I see in the shadows? Is there a reflected light filling in and softening these shadows? How are the planes separated? Is there backlight or is the background lit to a different tone? What other lighting effects are happening and what is causing them? To what extent do they create modelling, separating and softening? The key light or main light, or let's call it the modelling light, is by definition usually the most dominant source. It sets the character and mood. It usually pays dividends to spend longer with that light than any other light. Usually what you try and do when you're lighting, particularly when you're lighting portraiture, is to spend longer on positioning the direction of the key light. That's crucial. What you do is you look at your subject. It's very useful to have someone moving the light for you. So you look at your subject. What I tend to do is arc the light around a person's face and then raise it up and down. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the nose shadow, how the nose shadow is moving. I'm looking at the eyes, and I'm looking at the sockets in the eyes and how they're moving. I'm looking at the cheekbone structure. I'm looking at the jawline. I'm looking at all of these things and seeing the balance of the face, how the balance of the face is being changed, what points are being emphasised, what points are being suppressed. And I'm looking at all of this with the direction of the light moving around the face. So there are some more terms to talk about. Most of the time, a model is oftentimes looking off camera, where they're looking to the left or right of the camera. So by definition, you're going to have one side of their face that is pointing towards the camera and one side of their face that's pointing more away from the camera. With that in mind, the modelling light will be lighting either the near side or far side of the face. We sometimes refer to it as a far side key or an ear side key. So in relation to the camera, the main light is set on the far side of the model's nose, beyond the far eye, leaving the camera side of the model's face in partial shadow. We refer to that as a far side key. The ear side key, this refers to lighting the model from the camera side of the model's face, leaving the front of the face in partial shadow. A far side key or short key is generally preferred amongst cinematographers. This is because it gives better modelling or a better sense of the three-dimensional shape of the face. It focuses the viewer on the face rather than the ear and side of the head. A near side key, however, presents less shadow to the camera and shows the hair and the head shape more. This may be the reason for the predominance in classic portraiture, which are more concerned with overall appearance and with emotions and performance. So on the nose key is when the subject's nose is pointed directly at the main light source. The nose shadow will reduce and so will any blemishes on the face. This is a very commonly used key for beauty. It's a classic Hollywood way of lighting the glamorous movie stars of the 40s and 50s. In fact, Paramount did it so much that some people refer to it as the Paramount key. Conventional beauty lighting very often uses the on-nose key. The classic beauty lighting technique is diffusing an on-nose key position just above the lens. This minimises wrinkles, double chins, large noses, jowls and emphasises cheekbones. It's a classic technique. The height of this nose key is crucial. What you're looking for is to go as high as possible to emphasise the cheekbones, but not to create shadows too deep in the eye sockets. It's a fine line, and it's also crucial to set the eye line, as the tilting up and down of the head will dramatically change the lighting. The human face is one of the few subjects that can benefit from being lit from such a flat angle. So let's move on now to the fill light or the softening light. The fill light helps to soften the shadows. It helps the film or digital camera to see into the shadows. How bright the fill is in relation to the key will determine the lighting ratio and influence the contrast. So the quality of a fill light is often a soft light, and the reason for this is a soft light is used to prevent the introduction of a secondary shadow. I should also talk a bit about how I like to use the softening or fill light. I like to place it on the key side of the face. This is in contrast to most common practice, where most people place it on the opposite side of the key. There is a reason for this, however, and it's about lighting facets. By keeping the fill on the key side and wrapping the light further around from the key to reach the shadow side cheek, but not the shadow side jaw, creates a fill that doesn't reach all the way round and keeps one facet in shade. Therefore, all 4 facets are defined with separate illumination, and in my view, this creates the most three-dimensional of lighting strategies. This is showing quite a high key, and as you can see, we lose the light in the eyes. And what we sometimes do, with certainly with beauty, is we introduce a soft upward bounce. And you can see what that does to the face. Bring that in, particularly the eyes. Can you see that? I mean, if you're going for a tight shot, then you... But that's quite a fashion editorial look. Okay, and then you can also do that with silver as well. And silver's got more bite to it. It's a harder light. So, as you can see, and you can see the silver reflecting on the face. And underneath the nose. And under the brow bone of the eyes. And then gold, we got gold again. It just introduces a very warm glow this time. Look at that. Okay, and then we can do the same thing from 3/4 back. And then take it away there. And on, and walk. Can you walk back away from the camera? Yeah, that's it. Let's try that with silver. And then off. Silver on. And off. And then white. And off. That's it. And on. And off. And on. So I'm going to talk a bit about how the skip handle reflects the source a lot more. So you can really see the colour in the cheek of the white there. You can see the white reflected in the jawbone there. And then, and off again. So producing a fill light from underneath the chin, glowing upwards, is a really wonderful tool for beauty. And actually it's a very modern way of lighting. A lot of people now are starting to really embrace uplighting. You know, years ago people used to think of uplights as the sort of thing you'd use for horrors. But if you use uplight with the soft light, you know, sometimes if you bounce it into polyboard or something and just have this soft glow coming up, it can be a wonderful tool for filling in wrinkles and producing a wonderful glow. You know, note how it reflects on the eyebrow bone, the area between the eye and the brow. So separating light or backlight, illuminating the subject from behind in relation to the camera. Usually a hard light for control reasons. It's possible to use soft light for a backlight, and sometimes it's very effective because it doesn't look so lit, but you've got to be very mindful of the camera flare that it could produce. Now backlight, particularly hard backlight, adds sparkle and sheen. You know, it can produce, it's like painting on a little highlight to every plane, and it's a really nice way of giving something a more glamorous sort of aspirational look. So oftentimes it's used in commercials because, you know, backlight can give things that extra bite. Be aware of backlight when you're doing hair. It can highlight flyaways, which is little strands of hair that are away from the body of the hair. It makes people look like the hair's got split ends. So yes. Yeah, it's not good for a hair product. If you're selling hair shampoo, you don't want flyaways. And the other thing to be mindful of is bald heads as well. It can produce quite a high specular reflection on the head. But what is sometimes nice would be to light the background. And what I find quite nice is if you light the background and let it vignette off to darkness, so you have like kind of like a glow around a person, that can be, you know, very sort of visually very pleasing. Let's build it up from just the key then. So that's just the key light, and then the fill light on, Jack's light on, separating the back of the hair from the back of the studio. And then the other backlights, and that's what we call a liner light again, and then swap that over for the harder one. And that's the harder one there. Okay, and let's kill the fill light. And let's do those two again. And then go back to the one by one. I think that's the best lighting, in my opinion, for this one. It's just like that. Key on. Fill light on. Backlight on, hard backlight. Soft backlight. And Jack's light. And fill light off. Backlight off, sorry. Jack's light off. Key light off. Key light back on again. And then go for the soft backlight. And then Jack's light. I like that, it's my favourite, but then finally fill light back on. And one last thing, swap between the hard back and the soft back. That's the hard back. And then the soft back, that's the soft back. Back to the hard back again. And then this time save the fill light. And that's another more dramatic look.